The Pickle Story from Season 2 of The Andy Griffith Show is one of my favorite episodes. It's Mayberry at its iconic best as Andy and Barney pretend to enjoy Aunt Bee's kerosene cucumbers because they don't want to hurt her feelings. The reactions from Griffith, Knotts, and even young Ron Howard as they bite into her cucumbers is comedy gold, and truthfully, I never tire of watching this particular episode for just those reactions alone. That said, there are some great lessons learned from this particular trip to Mayberry RFD, so without any further ado, here are 5 things that I learned by watching Andy Griffith's The Pickle Story. The first thing that I learned is that Aunt Bee isn't quite the cook that history books make her out to be. Her homemade pickles are absolutely terrible, and try as they might, anyone who tries one can't help but grimace in absolute disbelief after tasting one of these little monsters. Even Aunt Bee knows that they aren't very good because at the beginning of this episode, she admits that she's decided not to enter them into the county fair this year. And it's not just Aunt Bee's pickles. Based on Barney's reaction here, it's fair to say that her ammonia-laced marmalade is near lethal as well. Second lesson learned is around Andy's parenting. It really isn't all that great, at least during this moment of extreme crisis. Sure, he does his best to explain to Opie why they're swapping Aunt Bee's homemade pickles for store-bought yumminess, and young Opie seems to understand. Still, this is one slippery slope. Their attempt to deceive Aunt Bee may be well-intentioned, but is it the right thing to do? As a parent, is Andy sending the right message to young Opie? Not sure on this one, folks, especially since we learned that there are unintended consequences, which lead right into the third lesson that I learned. Yep, unintended consequences are almost always guaranteed to raise their ugly little faces when one embarks down the path of a little white lie, or in this case, bottles and bottles full of little green lies. You see, winning the county fair pickle contest is something that Mayberry resident and friend to Aunt Bee, Clara Johnson, takes a great deal of pride in. And because her pickle recipe was something that her late husband took a great deal of pride in as well, when she wins, she feels connected to him. So when Aunt Bee decides to enter her counterfeit pickles into the county fair competition, Andy worries that he and Barney may have done more harm than good. One more thing, was anyone else taken aback by how braggy Clara was? It didn't seem to bother Andy at all, but clearly humility is not this lady's strong point. Lesson number 4 is all about the rhythm and pace of life in Mayberry. You see, where else could a pickle contest be such a big deal? Just look at the way the judges approach their sacred duty of determining which pickle is the very best. And also gaze upon the fixated countenances of Andy, Barney, and Floyd. Yep, only in Mayberry would this be considered excitement. For those of us who are a little weary of the everyday excitement that we face in our modern world, this simple contest is part of the reason that Mayberry and the Andy Griffith Show as a whole is so appealing. Lesson number 5 is all about Aunt Bee. I think this lady is crazy like a fox. If you've seen this episode, you'll notice that she never actually tries one of her own pickles until she sees the guys wolfing them down. At that point, she tries one of the counterfeit pickles and is absolutely delighted. Earlier in the episode, when everyone was tasting the real deal, those wicked kerosene cucumbers, Aunt Bee chooses to abstain. Whether she subconsciously knew it or not, her spidey sense was tingling, telling her not to taste one of her own creations. Also worth pointing out that this episode really allows all of the cast members, including Frances Bouvier, to shine. She is so good in this episode. One final note, this episode, along with The Christmas Story, was colorized and broadcast by CBS a few years ago. Definitely worth a look if you're curious. But I still contend that the episode in its original black and white format is the way that it should be viewed, at least most of the time. So that's it. Do you remember The Pickle Story? Please share your memories in the comments section below. And while you're at it, please click on the thumbs up icon, and why not consider whether or not you'd like to subscribe to my channel. I talk about music, movies, and television, mostly from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. You know, the good stuff. But most importantly, and as always, thank you so much for watching.